friends, and welcome back to another Majora's Mask project making video. I am happy to announce that we are now up to the 19th mask, though the 19th mask isn't actually a mask. It is one of those funny ones where it's considered a mask within the game span, but it's actually a hat. Now, along with some of your comments and probably you guys deducting from the thumbnail of this video and the title, the 19th mask of the series will be the Postman's hat. Now, the Postman's hat is a mask that you receive towards the end of the Anju and Kafai's side quest. It is when you take Kafai's letter to Madame Aroma and you bring that letter to the postman in West Clocktown on the final night, so he can deliver it to Madame Aroma, who is waiting at the latte milk bar. These last three masks are kind of tying in all together. Madame Aroma will be worried that the postman basically hasn't fled with the impending doom of the moon falling and hitting, you know, Termina. So she grants him permission to do so. If Link waits outside the bar as the postman is about to flee and Link talks to him, he will give him the postman's hat just before he goes. And then that's how you get it in the game. In terms of making the postman's hat for the series, I'm kind of following along what I did with the Romani's mask and the Dongero's mask, and I'm going to probably use a mask base as a hat part, and I'm going to use foam clay to kind of build the hat. Apart from doing that, I could probably use some 2mm foam and make the shape of a hat. And then in terms of the visor part of the hat, I can cheat a little bit. I received a policeman's hat from a charity event I did a couple years ago, so I'm thinking of just stealing, it was a cheap one, so it's okay. I was thinking of stealing the visor off that, attaching it to the front, and then kind of building up with foam clay maybe from there. Not sure about any other parts of that. This is just the plan. I haven't made this one yet, so we will see how it goes. And also, just to finish off this little introduction, you guys might be thinking I am wearing the same shirt that I was in my last video. That is because this is another one of those 2 masks in 1 week kind of deals. I am recording this ahead of time because during the last week of January, I will be flying back to Adelaide for a family wedding. So I will be out the whole week, which means the week before, which is now when I'm filming this, it is currently the 19th. I will be attempting to make 2 masks within the 1 week. So I can come back and I can have it done and it can be consistent and everything goes to plan, I hope. If we're seeing this video later, it means this did not work. I apologize. I try to be as consistent as I can and make 1 mask a week and post 1 mask a week. But look, life things happen and I have been very, very busy over the last couple of months. So I am surprised that I have done and been consistent this whole time. Anyway, I think that's it. So without further ado, I'll let you guys get to the mask making.
The first thing that I wanted to do with my mask base was cover any holes, so I grabbed my masking tape and covered up the eyes. Luckily for this one, I didn't need to worry about cutting off the nose or anything, so it was time to build up the postman hat shape. This was also the same point in time where I was running low on foil, so I was using paper to shape the postman hat. I was a little torn because there are 2 different variations of the postman hat. One is a lot more square and the other one, like I showed at the beginning of the video, is a lot more rounded. I ended up going for the one that was more rounded. When I was happy with the shape of the paper, I then grabbed the foil and started to cover it completely, also making sure that I added more foil in areas that the paper didn't quite hold correctly. I wanted it to be as round as possible, and as you can imagine, scrunched paper doesn't always give that look. To hold the foil in place, I also used masking tape, and I did kind of lie at the beginning of the video. Well, not really lied, but basically I couldn't find the police hat that I was going to steal the visor off, so I ended up just creating that visor out of foil that I just molded myself. I also added some little flaps on the side that kind of cover the ears, just because the model that I was following had a bit more of rounded sides as well. Once I was happy with the shape, it was time to completely cover the whole thing in foam clay. It was a bit difficult because the paper and the foil moved a lot as I was trying to smooth it down, but I did end up completely covering it. Also, make sure if you do this, wet it. It dries smoother. The next day, I grabbed it because it was all dry and it was time to fill in any holes. It wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it, but I basically just got some extra foam clay, which I ordered within that time frame. God bless Amazon for that. And filled in any holes that may have developed, also smoothing over any bumps that I could see. I then sketched the shape of the bunnies onto the Postman hat. There are 3 of them, 2 small ones on the side and 1 big one on the front. And then I grabbed more foam clay and I started to shape them. I wanted them to protrude out a little bit, but I didn't want them to be too thick. I also used the side of a pencil to kind of make sure the sides of the bunny were flat, and this is how they ended up turning out. I also used the point of the pencil to make sure that the holes of the eyes were a little bit more round. Once the bunnies were dry, which was later that day, it was time to start painting. As I said, this was another time crunch project, and I do wish that I had more time to work on it because it didn't turn out too much like a postman's hat, or at least I didn't think it looked like it at this stage, and it was not as flat and smooth that I would have liked. Once I started painting, it did kind of hide the fact that it wasn't that smooth. But yeah, I wish I just had more time to shape it a lot nicer rather than being in a rush. But look, life things happen. I had quite a lot to do in the next couple of weeks, so getting this one out of the way was a priority. And it didn't turn out too bad. This is what it looked like with the first coat of the red paint. I thought it was too dark to begin with. So when I did the second and third coats of paint, I went over with a lighter red. I also painted the bunnies white before I did the red, just so they were completely coated and I didn't have to worry about going over the fine details while I was doing the red. I think the lighter shades looked a lot nicer and kind of gave the feel of a postman hat, making me think of like the bright red post boxes around the place. I then mixed up a nice shade of brown. I already had like a brown paint, but I added a tiny bit of black just to make it a little bit darker to completely cover the visor of the hat. I did only 2 coats of paint on the visor, but only 1 coat underneath because I wasn't too worried about painting the underneath. This is now me doing the 3rd coat of paint. As you can see, it just kind of looks lighter every time I do a coat of paint for it. And once that was completely covered, I was happy with the paint job, and the painting was basically done. Once the paint was all dry, it was time for me to add some finer details, so I grabbed my marker pens and added in the eyes of the bunnies before grabbing my eyeshadow palette and just shading on some details. I tried my best to avoid the natural occurring bumps from the paper and just shaded around the edges and around the bunnies just to give them a little bit more depth and a little bit more detail. Once the makeup was added on, the postman hat was pretty much done, and the last thing that I wanted to do was to make sure that it was wearable. As you can see, the mask base doesn't really fit completely on my head, so it can be held/balanced on there, but it's not a snug fit. What do you guys think? Please let me know if you like how it turned out. Feel free to subscribe if you want to follow along with the project, and let me know which mask you'd like to see next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye!